Hi, my name is Mark Spitzig, and I want to present to you a business case for Bentley Systems Incorporated to revitalize their software documentation process. Now, just a little company background. Bentley Systems Incorporated is a software development company, and they do produce software that helps to design and modify mostly civil structures, but you can see here that there's everything from mining to offshore drilling to overpasses to highway interchanges, bridges, buildings. Their software does it all. It's all related some way to civil engineering, however. They've designed and released more than 150 products all throughout the world. They actually have 90 offices in 50 different countries all around the world. So we can see from this diagram, they've got offices, all these white dots are offices around the globe. A lot of centralization in Europe, North America, but there's some in South America, Africa, Middle East, Asia, and Australia. They're all over. They're truly a global company. And we can see that about 45% of the revenues were generated in the Americas, 36 in Europe, Middle East, Asia. That's what EMEA stands for. And the remaining 19% is from Asia. Now they're doing financially pretty well as a company. Their revenues are sort of consistently increasing besides the 08, 09 that happened to most people, but it's consistently increasing. They actually last year have had revenues of over $550 million worldwide. Well, they have a bit of an issue because they're a global company and they develop software. They're very good at developing software that is nationalized, meaning they're very efficient in how they take the software, write the source code, and have that source code uh, easily transferable so that it can be generated in multiple different languages for multiple different users. So they're very good at that. The problem is that not the software actual source code itself, but the software documentation is holding up the release and it's delaying the release of the software products. Well, you may be asking what actually is documentation. Well, documentation is really nothing more than the user manuals that come with the software itself, the help files, the online tutorials, everything that sort of is the software that's included with the software that isn't the software itself. Now, this 3-week lag between the completion of the documentation and the completion of the software itself can be attributed to a few different things. The first of which is that the servers and the computers and the documentation is spread throughout the world, and it's tough to retrieve it because it's kind of in chaos. So there might be a piece of documentation from the same software in a computer in Pennsylvania, and one in Australia, and one in the Middle East somewhere, all different languages, but all the same software that needs to go out with a release, and it's tough to find, and it creates a lot of inefficiency. And the second problem is that we have a situation set up where we have people who are working all over the world, but they're working sort of how they want to work. They want to work in Word, or they work in Word. They want to generate it in a PDF, they do that as well. If they want to do it on a web page, they can do that as well. So and it also depends on what type of documentation. So it again sort of spreads out and makes a chaotic sort of mess of all this documentation scattered throughout the world. And in addition to that, because they're well aware that this 3-week gap exists between when the documentation is complete after the 3 weeks after the software is completed, the documentation isn't, they throw a bunch of extra people at this process at the end to try to speed it up. So they'll throw engineers and other managers and developers all at this process to try to speed it up, which just only adds to the chaos and only adds to the inefficiency. So my proposed solution is we want to incorporate two different software products. The first is called XMetal and the second is called TriSoft. And these products will work together to help alleviate this problem. Just as a quick rundown, XMetal is just simply an XML editor. XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. It's just a global sort of way to write in computer code that a lot of different machines can format and can utilize it. And one of those one of the software that can actually utilize it is called TriSoft. And this will actually manage all those XML files that we generate for the documentation and be able to sort of store it in one place, make sure everything is up to date. We'll manage who has access to it, and we'll also be able to generate the documentation from that XML code at the end in any language that we choose with any version that we need to. And so this is what the solution would look like. We have all the group of the same group of documentation specialists who, instead of working in different things, will all be working in the same format. They'll all be working just in XML in this one single file. So they'll check out the file, they'll make their corrections, they'll add what they need to add, and they'll all go to this database. And then at the end, when they need to generate the software release for English, German, Russian, and Chinese, they can all generate all the software using TriSoft from that one HTML sort of repository, and they can generate all those software products at once. So a bunch of people working on the same thing, generating those products at the end. And for oversight, we have one manager. We would need to introduce this manager. There isn't currently a manager that oversees the documentation employees, but what I propose that we should have one it'll increase the oversight and the efficiency of this group as well. So that, in addition with the using the XMetal software and the TriSoft software, we can increase the time or decrease the time that it takes to actually generate these documentation. And what will also be handy about it is that there'll be one server. There'll be one server, one central repository managed by TriSoft that will be probably in the company headquarters in Exton, Pennsylvania, where all the computers will link up to. So there'll be no need to find files all over. We know where they're going to be, and we know where we can find them, and we know which one's the latest version. And it'll take the documentation time from 15 days initially to merely 5 days. And we can split the project up into 3 different phases: the initialization, the training, and the implementation of the project. Now, the initialization of the product will involve things like purchasing software, setting up and modifying our current servers to handle the software, modifying the customization of the product itself, so taking that TriSoft and incorporating it into our already existing network and system, so customizing that for Bentley systems. And then also migrating the current data into the system itself, and then I'll have some time for troubleshooting. The second is training, and that can actually run concurrently with the initialization, because you're going to be taking a manager, training him on the ins and outs of how to use that software, how to generate the documentation, how to do everything you're going to need to know to generate software. So we're going to take those 2 phases and we can work on them concurrently, and then after those are complete, we actually implement that, and that just involves assigning tasks, assigning groups to actual certain and different software products. And of course, there's going to be some costs and benefits to these products. So let's examine the benefits first. Well, we can reduce the documentation staff from 28 to 25. So reduction in 3 staff members, pretty significant when you add their salaries. It's near $144,000. And we also get to take there's no need to take the time from the engineers, developers, and managers sort of at this mad rush at the end to generate this documentation. We won't need that because the system in place will be so efficient. We won't need all those extra people, and they can go back to working on what they were working on before, which increases the efficiency in those other areas. And there's also some more intangible benefits for this, and we said there's increased efficiency in other departments, but there's also going to be higher morale, because when you think about doing the same task and trying to locate different files, just waste time searching all over, and then editing it, and then someone edits in a different thing, it can be very demoralizing. But if you're trying to work on the same thing and you can actually do it, and all of a sudden at the end it's done, you can generate any software you want, it's quicker, and you will hopefully have increased employee morale for everyone. And that includes those engineers, developers, and managers that no longer have to work below where their degree says they should be working. And some of the costs associated with it, it does end up totaling $104,700 for the initial cost and $108,000 for annual costs, recurring annual costs. And here's the chart that analyzes the costs with the benefits. When you take that into account, we see that there is a payback period of 2.91 years and an internal rate of return of 14%. And of course, with any project, there's going to be some risks associated with it. It does create some complexity in the company and adds a new sort of managerial unit within that company. And an error from someone before would only be an error in that particular version of that particular software. But an error in the HTML file would actually generate an error for each and every single one of those product documentation. But hopefully this can be mitigated by having that manager who will oversee these the employees who will be entering the documentation. And because it's a server solution, there is that one server, and it does require an internet connection. So if the internet goes down or the server goes down, the productivity goes way down. And the organizational impact, well, like I said, it's going to add an additional unit to be managed, but we have that additional manager that are in the costs. And it's going to speed up production time, which hopefully as a company-wide will increase morale and increase customer satisfaction. And there are some alternatives to the plan. And the first alternative would be to simply hire more staff. So hire more documentation staff. Now, it is costly. You're going to be adding salaries instead of taking them away. It doesn't increase the efficiency of the process as is. And it won't help in the morale, but it will be able to decrease the lag time. Now, if we are a software company, Bentley Systems does develop software, so why not generate some of our own software to solve this problem? Well, software, we focus on the civil engineering software, so we'd have to change over to a platform that would be able to generate this documentation, but it also will take a reallocation of developers and retraining of these developers and how to do that type of software. And it's a significant time investment, as software products can take up to a year or even more to fully implement. Now, of all the alternatives, we have a Venn diagram here that has the three main things we're looking for: increased efficiency, low costs, and the decreased time to release. And we can see that the proposed solution is the only one of the three that fit right in the middle, where it'll increase the efficiency, it'll lower the costs, and it's going to decrease the time to release that product. So that's why the proposed solution is better than all the alternatives. So we want to make sure we implement this solution, and thank you for your time.